because when I was a kid, I didn't have the confidence, the looks, the
Mm.
I didn't have that self assurance in myself, right? So when I was watching porn and I watched like a stud jock dude, laying it down, I was like, it makes sense. I'm like, it makes sense that this dude is in porn, right? And it inspired me to be, similar to that, right? So,
Nobody's Webster's out here, the man, the voice of fragrance, here with an up and comer in the adult industry, Mr. Zane Walker. Zane, how you doing today?
good, sir. How are you?
Doing well. I'm doing well. One of the things that first of all, I haven't gotten a chance to really, well, you're like the second male talent I've gotten a chance to interview, and the other one had been around 20 years. You're fairly new, so I'm very curious. What led you into the adult industry?
What led me into the adult industry? I would say being super spontaneous, very bold, um, very confident. I would say a couple years ago, I lost my job due to COVID.
Hmm.
So at the time, the girl I was seeing, I told her I had this little dream, that I always thought it was very intriguing to me to be a porn star, and I asked her, I was like, "Hey, you already let me record our, whenever we have sex. How would you feel if I, posted a video to Pornhub?" And she was the type of girl where like whatever makes you happy, go for it, right? She's very supportive. So I ended up putting like a video or two of us on Pornhub a couple years back, and they did pretty crazy numbers for being some basic amateur, off the iPhone type of deal,
Right.
and that kind of got the snowball rolling um, until where we are now.
Interesting. Okay. It's I find it really amazing how sort of COVID just really precipitated so many people turning to adult entertainment as a possible way of financing. And again, I guess in many respects it was at that point in time, those of us that were working were home, those that wasn't working were home. um, you had to figure out something to do and try to earn some money or a supplemental income somehow. And everybody has a phone and everybody can upload to the internet. So
Everyone
that
likes to know. So
that's very true. That's very, very true. So it makes sense in many respects. Now, let me ask you, and this is something that I've been dying to ask because, and I see you put out a tweet on this not too long ago, about a month, not even a month ago, 3 days ago now. Um, I've always wondered because I know male talent don't get paid as much as female talent. Male talent, while they make the scene go, all of the demand really is on you guys. Like how the question I'm trying to I got multiple questions. I'm trying to get myself together. How do you deal with that pressure knowing that you essentially don't get the same amount of respect, especially being a newcomer to the game?
how do I? Your question is how do I deal
Deal,
with not
deal with
getting
the pressure to perform. Maybe that's more because really the scene is on your back to perform
right?
in many respects.
You know, I feel like, don't get me wrong, I do feel like it is a very difficult job for both, male and female.
Hmm.
Um, you know, also especially on the male because the scene does ride or die on you.
Right.
I don't feel the pressure anymore because I have quite a few scenes under my belt now.
Okay.
Um, but also just the things I did prior to porn, I feel like I've been in high stress or high
Mm.
pressure situations where I this is more of, fun to me now than I feel like pressure to put on a performance. Don't get me wrong, if it's a high budget scene or it's a big
Hmm.
production, I'll make sure I show up on my P's and Q's and, I'll be well prepared. However, this is like it's like a player going to the league, right? If they're playing basketball, they've
Right.
already done all the time that they needed to prepare themselves to get to the league. So when they're there, it's kind of like showtime. Let's have some fun. Let's make a name for ourselves. So that's how I look at it. I It's just more as if I'm ready to have fun, I'm ready to put on a performance, and I'm ready, to show why I deserve to be here.
Understood. Understood. So you're a gentleman of of a younger age, and you have grown up in an era where, well, porn is everywhere. In many respects. Uh, are there anyone, or is there anyone out there like you grew up really watching and really just thought like, hey, I really love what they do, and maybe even now, maybe there's some people you maybe want to aspire to work with? Anybody on that list for you?
Male or female?
Either or.
So when I was growing up watching porn, don't get me wrong, when you're watching straight porn, you're
Mhm.
looking at the girl to get off.
Right.
Me, person, I always thought it was just as badass when it was like, um, you know, a guy, showing off well, because when I was a kid, I didn't have the confidence, the looks, the
Mm.
I didn't have that self assurance in myself, right? So when I was watching porn and I watched like a stud jock dude, laying it down, I was like, it makes sense. I'm like, it makes sense that this dude is in porn, right? And it aspired me to be, similar to that, right? So when I was watching it as a teenager, I would watch like Johnny Castle, I would watch like Chad White, I would watch like Danny Mountain. Or like any of those guys who are like on Vixen, right? Because like
Hmm.
Vixen, like, they're only casting dudes who are like ripped, tall, in shape,
Right.
like alpha male type of guys, right? And when I was growing up, I was the kid that was getting bullied on the playground, right? So
Mm.
I was, watching the pornos and I was watching like these hot girls, getting fucked, so to say. Like the guys who were usually doing it were like these stud dudes, right? So I was like, if these guys are getting laid, that makes sense. I'm gonna try to emulate myself to them, right? So I would start going to the gym. I would like try to better myself in whatever way possible.
That's interesting. I never thought about it like that. And I've had conversations before, and again, I'm 46, so I've been around for a little bit of time. But one of the things that I remember friends and I have conversation about, especially when it comes to just sort of the male body image in the adult industry, is that you look back, say in the 80s, it was very much a every man sort of industry. So many of the men that were in the industry uh, look like they could be your neighbor in many ways. Like you did have some buff dudes, some dudes that kind of fit that, you know, how gotta put it, every woman's fantasy stereotype, but a lot of them look like anybody you can see walking down the street. And it's been very interesting, and it's not a new phenomenon, but I would say even more so now, how it's very much about an aesthetic, especially when it comes to the men are concerned. And with that, I'll ask, because I know this interview got pushed back a little bit because you were coming from the gym. So what kind of like workout regimen do you keep to stay in shape and to keep that aesthetic?
It's actually gotten a lot more stricter recently.
Mhm.
I don't eat any sugar at all.
Mm.
The carbs are low, high protein. I actually have a nutritionist and a guy who does my meal plans for me. So I'm
Mhm.
not the expert in that department.
Okay.
He's the expert. He's a coach and also he writes my meals for me. But it is very strict. With the workouts, I was an athlete growing up, so I
Okay.
do try to do athletic style workouts. I don't do that bodybuilding style where it's like heavy compound movements and try to get huge and muscular. I just try
Right.
to have like a lean, like athletic, you know, vascular type of physique. That's what I go for. But what you said before that, right? Like you said how porn used to be like the guy was like the every guy next door, right?
Right.
That would piss me off, right? If I was watching porn and I was, obviously a teenager, and the guy in the video was like, you know, I don't want to sound arrogant at all, but if the guy in the video looked like a dork, right? That
Right.
would bother me more, right? Because when I was growing up, I didn't have the best social skills. I didn't have any confidence. I didn't know how to talk to girls. I didn't even like, I had no luck or no skill in that department, right? Until I
Mhm.
got older, right? So when I would see some dorky kid getting laid, I'm like, what's wrong with me? Why can't that be me,
I
right?
can understand that. Yeah.
But when I would see like a Johnny Castle or like a J-Mac, right? Tall, ripped, alpha, confident dude, I was like, that makes sense, right? So then that's what I try to aspire to be. I try to, be more confident in myself. I try to like be more outgoing. I try to go do sports, things that like a jock type of guy would do.
Right.
Cause I'm like, all right, that makes sense that these guys are killing it, right? If I saw a
Right.
dorky kid doing it, I'm like, something's even more wrong with me because like I can't even get a girl to talk to me. These guys are fucking.
Right, right. I can totally understand that. Growing up as a sort of geeky kid and trying to figure out, I
Oh,
totally get
dude,
that.
don't
Yeah.
look at me now. Back in the day, braces, glasses, like bowl cut haircut, tucked in shirt, like, like we came a long way, right?
Right, exactly. It's funny you make that point because I remember, and I don't remember which one it was. I feel like, and I'm giving the audience a bit too much of my adult industry knowledge. I think it was like The Devil and Mrs. Jones 1 or 2. I know it has this infamous scene with Vanessa Del Rio in it, but there was this black guy who was in it, and I remember this is like freshman year of college. We were just doing something and we were watching. Somebody had a tape and we were watching. And we were cracking up, and we were like, "How did this guy get in porn? Like he was." On a conventional scale of being in porn, he was not attractive. He was very much comic relief, and we're like, how we were really scratching our heads, like, how did this guy get into the porn industry? How is he doing these things? And he's like, dude, he's not cute, and he's like the comic relief, and we were all scratching our heads, like, who cast this guy?
Right.
Like, who thought this was a good idea? And then and then that wasn't his first scene. Like, I don't remember. I know I looked him up a while ago because I wanted to know, like, who is this guy? He has like a whole bunch of credits to his name. I was like, they just let anybody in back in the day, so to speak.
Dude, it's still like that. There's a lot of people that I see, and I'm like, how are you in porn? Like they don't take the job seriously. They maybe got lucky with a nice agent, or just it's like the same thing how I said earlier, right? It doesn't. I look at this as like a sport. Like
Right.
it's like the pro leagues, right? It's like if a guy, if you don't have experience outside of this, or you're not, if you're not coming in with your P's and Q's, you're
Hmm.
not going to make it, and it's not
Right.
just that either. You got to know how to market yourself. You got to know how to brand yourself. You got to know how to network. You got
Right.
you got to be charismatic, right? You got to like get along with the directors, the girls, you got to be good at socializing. Like, there's a lot of people even now still that, maybe shouldn't be in porn that are, but no big deal. It's just, I just look at it as like a sport, right? Like this is like, this is the pro leagues. You're starting now, right? You're
Hmm.
not on the bench anymore. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I love what you said, because one of the things I've really loved about my interviews is that, at least everyone I've spoken to, there is definitely a professionalism in how seriously take what they're doing. Yes, you may
Right.
be having sex on camera, and young men like yourself, pretty much with all these beautiful women, but there's still an air of professionalism. There's still a, hey, we got to network. I gotta, meet this person, do that person, market myself, brand myself. I have to have a certain image of myself so that, okay, I am attractive to those companies that may want to work with me. There's a lot there that I don't think that the general public really thinks about, especially now, because you're not just, working for a studio, you're working for yourself as well, with OnlyFans and things like that as well. So you definitely got to know how to market yourself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I even said it in like the tweet a couple days ago, which I think you mentioned, right?
Mhm.
Like they don't, and at least in straight porn, right? Like they don't
Mhm.
really put much focus on the guy at all. Like
Right.
when I first started, I'd hear all the time, "You're just a dick. You're just a hard dick. Like you're basically just a dildo getting used." Like
Right.
yada yada, right? Like that shit pisses me off, because as a guy, it's hard enough as it is to get into porn.
Hmm.
It's even harder to make it into porn, right? So
Right.
like when they basically like don't give a shit about you, kind of hurts. You know what I mean?
Right.
But if you take the time to build your own brand, start doing well on OnlyFans yourself, doing your own content, that makes up for all the nonsense that with the studios.
Right. Speaking of studios, you have a new scene out with Digital Playground. Tell me about that.
Oh, that was a fun one, right? The director is a good friend of mine.
Mhm.
He was the director of my first ever Brazzers scene that I did.
Mhm.
That was last November. Um, that scene went really viral. It went really well. It was a great day. So when he was doing this digital playground movie, he wanted to cast me as Ollie. He thought I would play the role really well, and he trusted me in my performance, and he thought I could get the job done. Um, I had a great time. It was a 4-part series. I was in the 3rd episode. Um, and I think, the series itself, not just my episode, has, I've really high hopes for it. I really do think it's AVN nomination worthy. If not, if I do think it could win something, because Digital Playground is a very reputable site in itself. It's very specific
Right.
in how they shoot their movies with their cinematography and who they cast. And, it's a high budget film, right? So, everything is very attention to detail and specific. So, I was honored to be a part of that, and I have high hopes for it. The numbers are doing well so far, and I just really hope the fans enjoy it.
Okay, I like that. I like that. Now, are there, you've done a pretty good number of scenes in your short time. Are there any scenes that you've done that just really stick out? Like this is really some of my best work. And I know you're constantly growing and evolving, as a performer. But is there anything that sticks out in your mind? Like, yeah, that was some good stuff.
That's already came out, or
Yeah.
could come out.
Either or. And I don't know if you how much you can say about what hasn't come out yet, but
Yeah, I mean, anything I've done
mhm,
since what's the month? January, I feel like I performed really well in.
mhm,
It's like how I said when you go to the pros, right? Like in the amateur leagues is where you get like you get your foot through the door, you see what works for you,
mhm.
this, and that. Starting January is, where I feel I was super confident going into every set, knowing I would have no issues, and I was confident I'd have a good time and I could perform well. So honestly, anything this year that I've been in, I feel like is a good performance. I feel like my best performances are anything with like Brazzers or Reality Kings or Digital Playground.
Okay.
Uh, I mean, the way you look at it is the higher budget the production is usually the better the better film you're going to get,
Okay.
especially if it's someone who takes their job seriously, which I like to think I do. If when I know there's more on the line, I feel like I can bring it even better.
Right. Now, let me ask you, and this is one of the things I've seen maybe over the past years, a couple years or so. Uh, I really enjoy when I see the performers are really getting into character, not just the actual sexual aspects, but the actual acting aspects. How do you prepare for that part of your scene?
You want to know something funny? So before I got into porn, the job that I did for a few years, I was a door-to-door salesman. So I've spoken to every type of person on the planet you can think of, from all different types of diversification aspects, right? So I'm very comfortable as it is with people now
Mhm.
compared to when I was growing up.
Right.
Uh, so speaking to people, resonating in front of people, and just all those types of things, I feel like just comes more naturally to me now. Like I actually prefer the acting and the dialogue and all that compared to the sex. It might be the other way around for some people. Um, I just think, it's like how you said you get to have sex with all these beautiful girls, right? Like that's just a perk of the job. I
Right.
don't look at that as the job, right?
Right. Understood. Understood. I like that. Now with that, we talked about marketing and your brand, and while you're fairly new to the industry, like what sort of long-term plans do you have? Like you have this brand now, Zane Walker. Like what do you want to do with it long term?
Um, Coming soon, hasn't started yet, but I do want to start doing some merch, right? Some clothes.
Mhm.
So I feel like that's going to be a big move. Um, and honestly, at the trajectory that my notoriety is going, I don't feel I need to do studio work for, too much longer. When I say too much longer, maybe a couple more years, because I actually,
Right.
I enjoy doing it.
Right.
I'm pretty selective with the studio work I do now. Um, But yeah, I just think at the rate that I'm going, humbly speaking, I won't need to do studio work anymore. I could just use the name and the brand and the fan base that I've built to, whatever honestly I feel like doing. um, yeah, but the first thing I do want to focus on probably in the next year is like merch, getting clothes out.
Okay, because I was wondering, because we have such a large cross section now with different multimedia aspects of, and now there's, not saying there isn't, is less of a stigma coming from the adult industry going into other, say, mainstream aspects, and people are very much keeping their name and building, taking their brand with them to other aspects. So I was just curious, especially with a young entrepreneurial sort like yourself, like if you had any ideas like where you want to go with this.
Yeah, I mean, I personally love acting in itself.
Hmm.
If I was able to do mainstream acting, not,
Hmm.
pornographic acting, that would be a dream come true. But I already have other interests, outside of porn. I love real estate. I'm working on getting another property and stuff in the business professional side of things.
Hmm.
So I don't look at this as like something temporary. I look at this as a tool to build off of and just
Right.
snowball into other things. Like this job has taught me so much, from digital marketing to branding to networking to socializing to confidence to everything, it's et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, where you could take what you've learned and, apply them wherever else, you desire at that time.
Okay, sounds great. I love that. Now, you hear what Webster style. I got to ask you, what sort of fragrances are you into?
Fragrances.
Yes.
What's the one that I was looking to go buy? It's at the home. Let me think. It's, I don't want to blank right now for you because it's phenomenal. I like all fragrances.
Hmm.
There's a couple different ones that I like significantly. I like Afternoon Swim by Louis Vuitton. I don't know if
Okay.
you've ever smelled that one. That
Yes,
one's
that's a good one.
Yeah, that one's really good. I like Centel 33. That's by Le Labo.
Nice.
That's a good
Yes.
one. Um, there's one more. If I remember it before the end of the interview, I'll definitely mention it because it is probably one of my favorites. Thinking what? Let me just go look in my.
Okay.
You know what? Um, let's see. Oh, this is a really good one. I like Creed Aventus.
Yes.
I'm running low on that, but that's one of my top favorites. There's actually a women's perfume that I like to wear sometimes. It's called La Vie Belle. That one's really good, by Lancome
Yeah.
Paris.
Okay. Yeah. I haven't smelled it, but another a cosplay I interviewed, Nurse J Becky. That's like her favorite right now. She loves
Yeah,
that.
that's a really good one. Um, the Afternoon Swim's a good one. The Creed's a really good one. Centel's a really good one that I get a lot of compliments on. And then the last one, if I remember it, I'll definitely mention it.
Okay, no worries, no worries. Look, I love it when I get to talk fragrances even just a little bit. So,
Yeah.
couple years launching pad. If there's, let me ask you this question, and then I'm gonna let you go. Is there one person, either still in industry or not in industry, that you would absolutely love to work with, like past or present? One person.
Tori Black.
Okay.
She's retired now, from my knowledge. But I would say she's my favorite female porn star of all time.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
So if you can make that happen, hey, more power. But
Unfortunately, I don't have that kind of pull. I wish I did, but I don't.
do you know of her?
Yes, I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Her performance, exceptional. Really. Yeah, definitely my favorite, I would say.
Got you. Well, Zane, I want to thank you for your time, sir. I definitely appreciate it. Let everybody know where they can find you and all your content.
Yeah, my Twitter is Zane Walker XXX. My OnlyFans is Zane Walker, and then Pornhub Zane Walker. I had an Instagram, but unfortunately, I'm fighting to get it back right now. So
Got you.
the best place is probably Twitter. That's my biggest platform, and then my
Okay.
paid site, OnlyFans, and then Pornhub Zane Walker. So yeah, I
Okay.
think I'm the only porn star named Zane Walker. So I should be findable, you know.
Okay. Thank you, Zane. Appreciate it. You guys, hope you enjoyed. Make sure you follow and everything, all the links below. Webster Style. We'll check you later. Peace.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.